Hello, everybody. Welcome to Women Making Big Sales. I am super excited about this episode. We're going to talk a lot about mindsets, transformations, and solving problems. Today, I'm excited to be speaking with Shanelle Roberts. She is an author, inventor, certified NLP breakthrough coach, and she is creative. She's a creative problem solver. And today we're going to talk about the mindset challenges we may be facing, especially when we have to go through a breakthrough, going after big accounts, big sales, talking to high ticket decision makers, and the kind of transformations or mindset challenges we may be facing. Hello, Shanelle. Look forward to talking to you. Can you say hi to everybody?
Hey everybody, I'm excited to be here and just chat with you a little bit and share my own story and just talk about how you can be able to change that mindset so that you're no longer allowing yourself to believe things that are holding you back so you can get those big ticket sales.
I am super excited about this conversation. I think mindset is the foundation to anything, any challenges, any opportunities we take on. So I can't wait to just have deeper conversation about this. Before I ask you those questions, tons of questions I have, can you just share with the audience your transformation or your mindset transformation journey and how you decided to become this breakthrough coach and helping
Mhm.
other people. Yeah.
Yes, cool. Yeah, so I think it, I mean, when I think back on my life, like coaching wasn't necessarily one of those things like, oh, that's what I want to do when I grow up. I was very much a problem solver. I was an athlete in high school and college. So I was very driven and ambitious. I got into graphic design, and then that led me into user experience design. So I was very much a creative problem solver. But one of the things I noticed, especially when you're working in enterprises and tech, is like it's very emotionally taxing. And if you don't have the right mindset and you don't have the right tools to be able to equip yourself, it can take a real beating on you emotionally. And so it burnt me out pretty bad. And so I ended up taking about a 3.5 year break from all of that to kind of rediscover who I am, what I want. And out of that, in learning to better equip myself and cope with stressful situations through neurolinguistic programming techniques and really thinking about how my mindset was affecting how I made choices in my life. Because I think a lot of it for me was, for a long time, I felt like everything was just happening to me and I didn't have really any control over what was going on in my life, which wasn't actually true. I mean, yes, there were a lot of challenges to overcome because I had grown up in a very toxic environment. And so there were a lot of negative behavioral patterns that I had learned because that's what was modeled for me. And so I was unconsciously repeating those, whether it was with friends and family, whether it was in the workplace. And that was creating a lot of extra drama and toxicity for me that I didn't necessarily need to be able to deal with. And so when I finally kind of hit that wall of realizing, like, hey, I'm becoming that toxic person that I really kind of hate, it hit me like I have to make a change. Like, I can't keep staying in an environment that's literally just creating so much mental stress for me. Like, I know that this is who they are as a company. These are the things that I want to be as a person, and they're really kind of on opposing sides. And so, in order for me to do what I needed to do in order to heal and to figure out how to resolve those internal issues, like I had to leave that environment. And so, having that break between um, the last corporate job that I had versus what I'm doing now, it's really given me a lot of time to do a lot of self reflection, a lot of deep breakthrough work to understand like what's actually at the root of a lot of this stuff. Because I think sometimes we don't always think through. We see the high level fruit of something, like we'll see anxiety or we'll see fear or we'll see anger, and we'll think like that's the actual root of something, and that's not true. You have to dig down a little deeper and understand what's triggering that action. Is it a desire for safety? Is it you've had a boundary that's been violated? Has somebody done something that's hurt you? And being able to trace that back and then dealing with that root makes it a lot easier to then resolve some of those other issues. So I know for me, in kind of getting that internal conflict worked out, because for a long time, like being safe was like unconsciously what my body and mind really thought was most important. It would do whatever it could to kind of make my reality believe that that's the choice I needed to make, even though like I wanted to go out there and talk to people. I wanted to share stuff around the coaching work that I was doing, around the design work and stuff that I was offering at the time. And because they were in conflict, it felt like I was kind of paralyzed for a while. And so when I was able to resolve that internal conflict, it made it a lot easier to then go out and be like, oh, I can go talk to that person, whether it's a high ticket item of going and helping someone go get a new job, whether it's going and selling a high ticket program. Like I feel so much more integrated about that. So, and I started to see transformation in my own life and in the life of the people that I'm helping. One of the ladies that I worked with, she was a design manager at one of the companies that I had been with previously, and she was burnt out, miserable. Her coach or her boss was kind of sabotaging her and her team, and she didn't know what to do. And so we worked together for about 6 weeks, and she was able to completely transform. And in that process, was able to go get a new job. She got a $30,000 raise, a $15,000 signing bonus, and $100,000 in stock. So for me, I'm like, when I talk about transformation, I'm not talking about, hey, like, let's go spend $1,000 and you make it $1,500 back. I'm talking about like large transformational changes, even if it's not solely just like a money thing. She's like, the biggest thing that she thanked me for was like giving her that self confidence back to know that like she doesn't have to tolerate bad behavior anymore. Like if this next place that she gets to like doesn't end up being where she wants to settle and she wants to go for that next position, she's like, I now feel like I have the tools to be able to go do that, which is I just think really inspiring. So knowing that like I've seen the transformation in my own life. I've seen it in the lives of other people that I've worked with. And I know, especially for us as women, a lot of times we want solutions, but we don't always know where to get them. And a lot of the what's given us kind of traditional steps that we're supposed to take don't always get the results that we're looking for. I know that was my experience. I'd done a lot of traditional therapy and that kind of stuff. And while it helped to an extent, it really didn't get to the root of the issue for me. Whereas I feel like the neurolinguistic programming tools have really kind of helped me get that deeper breakthrough that I was looking for. And I want to be able to share that with other women like me who want to get that. So it's not something that you have to keep hoping that you're going to get in the next year or 5 years of kind of laboring over and over things that really there are. When you get to that unconscious level and you deal with those things, you really can change things quickly.
The reason why I think the conversation we're having right now is so important is that even myself, I find that being an entrepreneur, it can be
Mm-hmm.
so stressful. It's such an emotionally
Yes.
taxing job because we're constantly pushing our boundaries. We face
Yep.
rejections, failures, challenges
Mm-hmm.
constantly and daily. And when I started my business, I was always stressed and I was always I felt really isolated, but I thought that was the way of life. I thought, if I want to be entrepreneur, I have to be miserable. If I want to be successful, like the old way of thinking, how
Mm-hmm.
how to be a successful entrepreneur, you gotta go for it, you gotta hustle, hustle, hustle. But I think that kind of
Mm-hmm.
notion is starting to change, and that's why I
Yeah.
think it's so important for us to have those conversations. Because for me, like I feel like sometimes when I'm not being 100%, I blame myself for being lazy, being unmotivated, and not having enough grit. But I love what you talked about in terms of digging deeper and really understand the root cause. Because I really feel like right now, when I understand the importance of having a strong and successful and joyful mindset, I am still
Mm-hmm.
making progress, but the whole journey becomes a lot easier. Does that feel the same way to you too?
Yes. Well, and I love what you're saying because I think, like you, I think that was one of the things that I've had to deal with. I won't say that it's completely gone, that I'm never going to like be able to or have to deal with that. I think because like I said, I had like a 3.5 year gap between what I was doing in corporate America versus what I'm doing now. And there was a lot of, I think, guilt on some levels because like the idea is that you always like you have to be hustling like 100 hours a week. Like all you're doing is hustle, hustle, hustle. Like if you're not committing to that, then like you're going to fail. And I'm like, and I was doing a lot of really deep internal work, and a lot of that takes time and energy and a lot of self reflection. And a lot of people don't necessarily understand that. And I don't think our culture really is set up always to support that. I mean, it's hard enough just being in business for yourself and trying to talk to people who, because I know like with family and stuff, they don't necessarily like in their mind, like I just need to go get a job, be stable, like work 9 to 5, like, and I'm just like, I get that. And I'm not saying there isn't a time and place for that. Um, but the creative side of me, the problem solver side of me, like wants to think of what the things that I have learned and want to build things that can actually scale that to a lot of people. And it's hard to be able to do that successfully for somebody else, um, knowing that like you're not necessarily going to reap the benefits in the same way as if you did that for yourself. Like if I
Mhm.
go and I build a solution that impacts a million people, um, and I do it in me, I reap the rewards of that. If I go do that for another company, I just get the benefit of whatever they paid me for the job that I've done. And
Mhm.
so it's a different kind of thing. And I think I've always been a little bit more risk tolerant, even when I probably shouldn't have been at times. Like, okay, well, like that probably wasn't the smartest decision for me to make, but like, okay, let's take the lesson, let's take the learnings, and really becoming a lot more intentional of shifting how I view failure. Because I think for the longest time, especially growing up, like failure was like one of the worst things in the world. Like if you didn't achieve whatever was set in front of you, like there was a lot of like punishment emotionally from family of like, well, you didn't live up to the expectations, you didn't do X, and I'm like, but I'm still like 98% of everybody else, and that's still not enough. So, so being able to reframe failure and just take it as like, okay, let's take it as feedback. Like, not everybody is going to. I'm not going to be the right fit for everybody, and that's okay. I mean, some people are going to need other types of solutions. Um, there's lots of different personalities. Um, like for me, I want to work with people who have more of that growth mindset. If you're one of those people who like you think you already know it all and you just want a quick fix, like I'm probably not the right fit for you, because you have to be willing to explore what's going on with you and admit that like, hey, like we might need to make some changes in our lives if we want to see different results.
Yeah, I love this. And before we get to more about digging deep into that growth mindset and understanding our mindset, our subconscious mind, I want to talk about the symptoms first. Because a lot of listeners right now, they might be listening to this podcast and they might not recognize that they're having mindset challenge. Because we go through our day and sometimes we feel tired and sometimes we feel a little bit not 100%, but we might not relate those symptoms to deeper mindset challenge. Could you share
Yeah.
with us some of the most common symptoms people might exhibit when they're feeling actually when they're probably facing some mindset challenges? For example, me myself, like when I have mindset challenge, usually it's when I have something I need to do and I don't do it. And I'm very much a task ticker. Like, I love my task list and love to tick off whatever's on my task list. But if there's one thing that I'm not finishing, I'm not doing it, and I know I got to do it and I'm not doing it, that's usually a reflection of, hey, you got some fear going on, you've got
Yeah.
something you got to work on. Do you see some of similar common symptoms people may have?
Yeah, that's a great point. I think a lot of times when we're looking at mindset, it's looking at the things you're actively trying to avoid, or even maybe unconsciously trying to avoid. Like you know that like you need to do like these 5 things, and like the first 4 of them are fine. Like you know it's not going to be a problem, but there's just that one that you're like, I know I need to do it, but I don't want to do it, and so you're in your subconscious mind can like self sabotage a little bit, because it's like, well, we don't really want to do that thing. Like let's do these other things because that feels more natural, or that feels more safe, or that feels more like what we should be doing. Even though like if I don't do that one thing, it's going to negatively impact whether it's my business or relationships or whatever it is that like you're avoiding at that point. And it creates additional like negative stress that you don't necessarily need. Um, And so having the understanding of like, okay, this thing that I am avoiding, let's figure out why I'm avoiding it, and being able to find a way to integrate that in so that your subconscious mind knows that like it's okay to go do that thing, and that's actually a good thing, because in doing that it gets us to that more that higher level of intention that both sides of us want. So like in the example of me not necessarily taking action because part of me really wanted to feel safe, the higher intention for me is I still wanted to be able to help people and serve God. But I couldn't do that if all I was doing was holding myself back and being safe and not taking any sort of action and just kind of sheltering myself away from the world. But once I got that integration, it's like, okay, yeah, I do need to go talk to people. I need to interview people. I need to reach out to people on social media. I need to set up one-on-ones with people and start to practice and get to know and get comfortable with all of that stuff and know that like these are skills that can take a little bit of time to develop, but like there is a strategy and a reason why you do them. And those are the things that you need to do in order to kind of get those results and get that breakthrough you're looking for.
Yeah, that's so true. And especially recognizing that, hey, this is probably a deeper mindset challenge. I think it's so
Yeah.
important because a lot of times we blame ourselves for not being motivated. And sometimes we even
Mhm.
wonder, oh, am I just being lazy? But recognize that, hey, maybe I have a desire for safety, like you said, it's
Mhm.
something deeper. That recognition, I think it's such an important first step to take, because once you
Mhm.
recognize that, okay, we're talking about deeper desire, then we can work on it. And I love how you are able to kind of connect the deeper desire and your bigger purpose. The fact that you got to
Mhm.
recognize what is the purpose of my life, what gives me joy,
Yeah.
what makes me feel whole. That purpose heart centered us. I find that a lot of women, whenever we do things, we need to have our heart with us. Without it, it just feels
Mhm.
like it's not going to be 100%. Like, did you
Yeah.
see that transformation in terms of like connecting your heart with your behavior? Like, did it help in terms of
Yeah.
progress and taking action?
Well, I mean, and I think that's as I came to kind of sort of that realization of thinking about purpose and how I want to spend my life and how I want to help people, like I needed to do that in a way that was going to connect with people. Like I have enough of a creative, analytical mind that like yes, I can go work on specific tasks that are analytical, but like I also get bored with a lot of that. Like it's great that you want me to like help you increase revenue from let's say $5 million a year to $7 million a year, but like that's not going to bring me the same satisfaction as me helping you on a personal level transform in some capacity to where we're solving a specific problem, whether it's helping you deal with a mindset issue, whether it's helping you change habits so that you're no longer doing stuff that causes you um, issue. Whether it's like sometimes with food, like I know for me, like weight has been something I've struggled with over the course of my life and keeping a healthy weight because I've used food as a coping mechanism at times in my life because it's one of the few things that we have control over in life. And like as women, I think especially we're just like we want to have some level of control, and so it's like you just kind of want to stuff yourself full of things that taste good, even though they're not necessarily good for you.
For me, it would be
Um,
the Oreo cookies. I couldn't. I mean, the Oreo cookies are, yeah, are my
I
comfort.
for me, most things that are chocolate is a weakness for me. Like I've always loved chocolate, um, and so I have to be very careful, like to not have a lot of that just laying around the house and all that stuff. Because I'm like, well, if it's there, I want to eat it, even though
Mhm.
like I know like we need to like plan this out, Chanel. Like this is supposed to last you a week, not 3 days.
This is not good. I've
Mm-hmm.
got this huge chocolate bar right at my desk.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Not good, but yes.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, definitely. I mean, it's that recognizing that, okay, we have that defense mechanism, and when it comes to dealing with that mindset and finding the purpose together. I love that we're talking about these the alignment of, finding that purpose and also taking care of that deeper fear or deeper desire.
Yeah.
These are like foundation challenge,
Mm-hmm.
foundation, and it takes a lot of practice and day-to-day practices. But
Mm-hmm.
at the same time, I want to share some tips and hacks if for any listeners, for any entrepreneurs that are listening right now, and they feel like they're having some mindset challenge. Do you have simple tips and hacks that they can try right away? Just kind of transform that mindset, if they're feeling that, hey, they really need to work on it. Some little tips that they may have. You may be able to share
Well,
with them.
yeah, and I mean, I do want to acknowledge like there is a time and place for fear. Like we don't want to be completely fearless so that we go into a really scary situation and we're all of a sudden not afraid and then something bad happens. So there is a time and place for fear. I think just with negative emotions in general, we tend to like try to minimize that like they're not valuable, and that's not true. Like there are times and places when those are the right response to what's going on. But I think a lot of times, just given the way that culture is and what's going on right now, we get triggered to where things that are happening are triggering fear that aren't necessarily like you're not actually unsafe. So like for me, like if I'm sitting in my house or whatever, I shouldn't necessarily feel like I'm being unsafe. Like nobody's around to hurt me. I'm not doing anything specific to hurt myself. Um, so reminding myself and being able to talk to that unconscious part of me and let it know that like, hey, you're safe, you're okay. Like there's no threat around you. It's okay to just kind of relax and let yourself know. And being able to talk to yourself about what's going on in the moment, and really kind of, especially if something triggers you, to kind of stop, catch your breath for a second, and really think about like, okay, what's causing this, and think about how you want to respond instead of just allowing whatever that is to be more of that unconscious response. Because I think a lot of times when we just react to things, we end up reacting in a way that isn't in our own best interests, even if it is a genuine response. But if you can catch yourself and like give yourself like a second or two to kind of like, oh, okay, let me think through like, how do I want to respond to that? I think that can help be able to deal with some of those emotions a little bit more effectively. The other thing is also being able to understand like your body doesn't necessarily know the difference between fear and excitement. So like it thinks it's the same thing. So if you can tell your body like when you're feeling like, so let's say you're getting ready to give a big presentation in front of potential investors and you're feeling some of that like nervous energy kind of coursing through you, but being able to have that mindset and that intention to be like, hey, like let your mind know like, hey, like this is actually excitement. You want to go in there, you want to do a good job, you want to present why your specific product or service is something they should be really excited to invest in. Then it gives you that energy to go in and do that good job instead of like shrinking back and then potentially do it or not presenting yourself in the way that you want to when you're talking to potential investors or customers.
I totally agree with you that fear will never be eliminated 100%. And if
Yeah.
you expect your fear to go away, I think that's kind of, you probably want to ask yourself whether you're hiding the problem or you're running away from the problem, because fear will always be
Mm-hmm.
there, especially as entrepreneurs, because we're always trying
Yes.
something new. Whenever we grow, there will be fear. So, yes,
Mm-hmm.
thank you for reminding us that your fear, the fear you face, they will never go away completely,
Mm-hmm.
but we have to learn, we have to have that strength and learn how to deal with fear every
Mm-hmm.
single time we face fear. Think for me, I continue to face fear and challenges daily or consistently. But I think over
Mm-hmm.
time, I have a mechanism, I have a system that shows me or tells me how to deal with fear whenever they come. We recognize, and
Mm-hmm.
I love how you're talking, what you mentioned of having that conversation with your fear and understanding where that fear comes from. For me,
Mm-hmm.
journaling has been a really good way. I don't know if you do agree with me, but for me, just to write down how I'm feeling and kind of having that conversation with me through pen and paper and say, okay, here's how I'm feeling right now. And then the next thing is really focus on what are the three things I can do to change how I feel. Having that conversation, it's so important, has worked
Mm-hmm.
really well for me every single time. Do you journal or listen to music? I mean, obviously not having chocolate, but I do have a small piece of
Yeah.
chocolate sometimes, a
Yeah.
small piece. Okay, I have to write, I have to admit,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes I still need to have a one
Yeah.
small piece of chocolate to figure that
Yes.
out. But
Yeah.
how, yeah, do you do similar things? Yeah.
Yeah, no, I do. I love journaling. I think especially when I feel really stressed, like that's a great outlet for me to just kind of dump my emotions out, to get it all out on the page so I can see it and then take a look at it and be like, okay, like it's good to see it. Is that valid? Like if not, like be like, okay, I acknowledge that, but let's put it in its rightful place versus like, okay, letting it, because I think a lot of times when we don't do, whether it's journaling or other sort of activities to kind of release that energy, that's when that stress internalizes and we end up potentially creating health issues for ourselves.
Hmm.
I know for me, because of growing up with very toxic parents, I stuffed my emotions for a very long time, which created a lot of health issues that I was working through. It affected my sleep, it affected my metabolism, my thyroid, a whole host of other things. And a lot of, I think, what we deal with just in culture in general is because we don't necessarily deal with that stress in a healthy way. And so our body is literally trying to scream at us, like, hey, something's wrong. And
Hmm.
like you can try, I'm not saying there isn't a time and a place for like traditional medicine, because there is. But like if you're trying all of these things with traditional medicine and it's not working, like getting to the root of some of those emotional issues and getting that resolution can also bring a lot of physical relief as well, because you're literally detoxing your blood because it's no longer having that emotion kind of sitting there unresolved and not really knowing what to do with itself.
Yeah, and that's definitely not good, and that's the reason why we have to talk about mindset and how
Yeah.
to deal with stress, especially as entrepreneurs, because
Yeah.
we want to be entrepreneurs for a long time. No one just want to have their
Mhm.
business for 2 years. We imagine owning our
Yeah.
business, growing our business for
Mhm.
10, 20 years, and we cannot constantly be stressed for 10 or 20 years. There will always be challenges. So I love how you kind of just highlight the physical impact of our mind, our emotions. And I used to feel really stressed as well, and that caused me a lot of stomach issues. But I feel like
Mhm.
now to step back, like you said, take it easy and have that conversation with people. And for me, like even just a simple smile, tell myself,
Mhm.
okay, 5 seconds, you're gonna just smile, look out. It doesn't work all the time. We're not saying that. I'm not saying that just having that smile, all the problems is going to be solved. But sometimes have that little smile
Mhm.
and say things are going to work out,
Mhm.
and be grateful and just a little bit of gratitude exercise.
Yeah.
These little things, you are going to have your own routine in terms of
Yeah.
how to deal with stress. Trying these things, journaling,
Mhm.
smile, gratitude, a little bit gratitude journal, you are going to figure out your process to dealing with stress
Mhm.
and fear. But when it
Mhm.
comes to that transformation and transform your negative mindset to positive mindset, do you
Mhm.
have, I mean, especially a lot of women, when I talk to them about sales and going after high ticket sales, it's that having a confident mindset, that feeling confident in pursuing opportunities. Do you help women create more confidence, have more confidence when it comes to going after the next promotion, the next
Mhm.
big ticket sale? What would
Mhm.
be your advice to women when it comes to having more confidence?
Well, I think a lot of it too is when you're doing that self reflection is kind of identifying those limiting beliefs and things that potentially are causing you to kind of shrink back from opportunities that you want to go after. So a common one that I've seen in my own life and in the people that I've worked with is the idea that like I'm not good enough, or I'm not pretty enough, or I'm not smart enough, or just I am not enough.
Mhm.
And so when there are actual techniques that can help you change where that belief lives in your brain so that it goes from being a place of feeling like it's true to being in the place in your brain to where it's no longer true. And when you're able to have that shift, then you're less likely to be really triggered by that when a situation may come up that would typically trigger that feeling of not being enough. Like, let's say you're getting ready to go into a presentation with a high level executive that you feel a little bit intimidated by because they're really well known in their
Big
field or
title.
whatever. Yeah, big title, like this, or this is the largest contract you've ever like potentially pitched, and like that's a little scary. Um, Being able to do some of that mindset work around those limiting beliefs and removing that from the equation then gets your subconscious mind in alignment with your conscious mind, which then means it wants to actually make what you're doing a reality instead of being a hindrance to you, and having you kind of shrink back and not perform to the level that you know you can.
Hmm.
And our subconscious mind controls about 95% of our actions and reactions in life. So when it's not in alignment with what you consciously want, it's going to be creating that friction and holding you back from actually accomplishing those goals that you have for yourself, both personally and professionally. And so that's where I think like neurolinguistic programming has been so powerful, because it has these psychological tools and stuff that you can use to then go shift it from being something that is kind of being more adversarial to you to be actually being in alignment, so that those goals that you set now become something that you can just go get, because both parts of you want the same thing and want to go make it happen.
Yeah, and then we have to make sure that our unconscious mind and conscious minds they're aligned so that they're not fighting against
Yeah.
each other because when there when there's a conflict it just becomes a lot more difficult and complicated. And I when it comes to having understanding your limiting beliefs and how to really make sure to deal with your limiting beliefs, and that is how you're going to transform and start to create have more confidence when it comes to pursuing
Mm-hmm.
opportunities. Do you have any suggestions when it comes to shifting that limiting beliefs and how to have that conversations to with your limiting beliefs?
I mean, I think there is a time and a place for having those affirmations to remind yourself that like, hey, like yes, I am good enough. Like, and this is where like being able to talk to yourself and remind yourself that like, hey, I understand that like you're feeling this way, but remember, we have this higher intention and we want this bigger thing. And in order to go get that, like this belief that you're trying to surface is something that we both know is now no longer true. Like, let's get back into alignment so we can go get this goal accomplished, because that's ultimately going to serve our higher purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And it is one of those things that I do feel like having someone to help kind of coach you through dealing with limiting beliefs is a lot more effective than like trying to do it on your own. I'm not saying you can't go and retrain your brain on your own, but I do feel like it's a lot slower of a process than like working with somebody who can actually run you through an actual script that can deal with that a lot quicker.
Okay.
Same thing with kind of that dealing with that internal conflict of one part of you wants this and the other part of you wants that. Because once you get those two pieces in alignment, then it's like, oh, okay, I now know that like ultimately we want this higher intention. So when conflict comes up, you just remind that part of you that's feeling a little hesitant that like, hey, like remember, we're doing this because we want this other higher intention. And then it calms that other part down a bit so that you're not necessarily feeling as reluctant or stressed or anxious about doing that action. I mean, you're not going to completely ever eliminate fear, but
No.
like it does bring that ease of like, okay, like there is an actual reason why we're doing it, and it's a good reason, and so like it's worth the effort of making that investment to go and do that, even if it's just one of those things where it turns into a learning opportunity, and you realize like as much as you may have wanted to get that sale, maybe you find out a really key piece about yourself or about what you're offering that like you didn't have before, that helps you in the next time that you go to make that sale that you didn't have that insight for.
Definitely. And then, like you said, we will never eliminate, say, fear completely. It's more about
Yeah.
exercising our mindset muscle, make it
Yeah.
strong, know, have a process, know how to deal with it. And for some
Mm-hmm.
people, they can deal with it themselves, just like working out and being
Mm-hmm.
physically fit. Some people can do at home
Yep.
exercises and they can be strong enough. And some people need a coach to create a
Mhm.
regimen, to create a plan, to make sure that
Mhm.
they become fit. But it's about, first of all, recognizing that, hey, if you feel like you lack confidence or you're having some unconscious sabotaging
Mhm.
behaviors, then go deal with it, recognizing that I am going to be
Mhm.
fit. I'm going to be mindset, mentally fit, and ready for
Mhm.
any challenges. And I love how you highlight that. Sometimes we lose a deal, and we're talking about sales, and we tend to,
Yeah.
sometimes we would lose our deal. We would lose the
Mhm.
opportunity we want to pursue. But to really understand that, hey, it's part of the journey, and constantly having that growth mindset. And the growth mindset is just like keeping fit. You have to keep working at it. You have to
Mhm.
constantly work at it, make sure you stay strong, and it's that
Mhm.
consistent effort. And like you say, sometimes you do need a coach to help you do it, and to help you to create a plan to help you stay strong and fit emotionally and mentally.
Well, and I think just in my own life and seeing what's gone on, like I feel like when you have the right coach, that's when you can move the quickest. Like, I'm not saying you can't do this stuff on your own, because you can. I mean, I did a lot of my own healing apart from NLP, but NLP gave me a lot of those tools that made things go together, and the results started happening a lot faster. So
Mhm.
things that may take you a couple of years, you may be able to do in a couple of weeks. So it's just, it kind of depends on the level
People.
of investment and time and commitment and stuff that you want to do. And some people may be able to figure that out on their own and like that process. Whereas other people are like, I'm tired. I've been trying to figure this out for 5 years. I want a solution now. And so I want to let them know, like, this is one of those reasons where like finding that right coach can be really transformational for you, because they can then walk you through those steps and be like, okay, this is how we're going to help shift you from where you are to where you need to go. And maybe we can do it in a single session. Maybe it's something that takes a month. Maybe it takes 6 months. It all just kind of depends on what you're looking to get out of it and what you're trying to solve.
Mhm.
And I mean, it's one of those things where we're always going to keep growing. That's part of the human experience. It's not like we ever completely arrive at all of this stuff. And so I think that's why for me, in offering and doing the coaching side of it, is I like being able to see people be able to have that transformation and to realize, like, hey, like, I don't have to stay stuck in this place where I don't necessarily feel empowered. I'm okay, but like I know life could be better. I could feel like I'm living a little bit more purposefully. I could have a little bit more meaning. I could enjoy my experience a bit more instead of just feeling like I have to stay stuck where I'm at.
Yeah, and I'm a strong believer that your mindset is going to become your reality. A lot of us as entrepreneur, and women making big sales is about helping women get more business. But a lot of times we're thinking that our sales goals would be our destiny. But I have been in sales for a long time, 20 years. Here's the thing, when we reach one sales goal, we're going to have a next sales goal we want to reach. When we close one deal, we're going to want to close the next deal. So it's
Yeah.
about making sure that every single day we live with a purpose. And how we feel today is how we're going to feel right 5, 10 years from now on. So we want to make sure that we continue to enjoy this journey, because it's a journey. It's never about that destination, because there is no destination. It's constantly enjoying and making sure that you enjoy the journey of being an entrepreneur. Because women, we decided to create our businesses because we want to be happy. We want to enjoy the freedom. We want to have more positive us to take care of our family. And having
Yeah.
strong mindset is the key to making sure that, hey, we can create this business that gives us more freedom and give us more opportunities to take care of our family, our loved ones. So
Yeah.
yeah, so I really want to thank you for coming here and then just share with us some strategies to build a strong mindset and really highlight the importance of our unconscious mind and making sure that it is aligned with our conscious mind. So Chanel, if people want to reach you, what would be the best way to connect with you?
I would recommend connecting with me on LinkedIn. So that's the best way to go do that. That's the one I'm probably most connected with at the moment.
Perfect.
Um, And then once you do that, we can potentially set up a call if you want to talk about coaching. I can also share a link with you as well. I have a 60-minute strategy session that if you have any listeners who are really looking for that breakthrough opportunity and want to kind of explore what that can look like, I can share that with you as well.
Perfect. And then I believe that you also shared with us a PDF file about identifying the root of the problem. So I will make
Yes.
sure to share that document with the audience. I think it looks like amazing document to really discover some of the root cause of the challenges we're facing. So thank you so much for sharing all this information with us. And make sure to come back and look forward to talking more about mindset because it's such an important topic.
Yes. Cool. Thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed this conversation. This is one of the things I'm really passionate about, of really allowing people to figure out how to go get what they want and to remove those barriers and limitations around mindset, because there are solutions out there and you don't necessarily have to stay stuck. It's just a matter of being willing to take that action and commit to doing the work.
Well, thank you very much. Hey, listener, I hope you've enjoyed this conversation, especially about mindset. I am a strong believer that when you sell, you can sell with more joy. You can sell with feeling authentic and feeling connected with your heart or your unconscious mind. So I do hope that this episode inspires you to go and pursue an entrepreneurial life with a lot of joy. And I look forward to speaking with you next time.